Superman has a weird history with video games. Injustice forever changed what people think of the character. Superman 64 is considered one of the worst video games of all time, and he hasn't had his own game in almost 20 years. Genuinely, what is going on with this character? With James Gunn's Superman releasing in theaters, I thought now would be the perfect time to check out every single Superman game ever released. Maybe I'll even figure out why it's so hard to make a Superman video game. I mean, Zack Snyder thought you had to change the character to work for a modern audience. A lot of people say Superman is too boring of a character to adapt, that he's too much of a Boy Scout, too overpowered, or just too good. And that just doesn't make any sense. I started to wonder how a Superman video game would tackle this issue. Do they talk about it at all, or will they just turn Superman into any other generic action video game? How will they take the importance of this character and what he stands for, and turn it into a video game? So let's just get things started with the very first Superman video game. The very first Superman video game released in 1979 for the Atari 2600, titled Superman. So far, I love the box art for this game. The bright background helps the Superman logo pop, and the art screams early 80s. And you know damn well the game is going to look nothing like this, because it's the Atari. I'll just get it out of the way now, this game isn't anything amazing. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting. It's the Atari. The game doesn't start until you, as Clark Kent, walk over to the bridge. It blows up, and if you go back to the previous screen, and inside of the telephone booth, you transform into Superman, which now gives you free range to fly around wherever you want. From the start, it seems like this game understands Superman pretty well. Having the very first thing you do be changing from Clark to Superman in a telephone booth is so charming. It's a very good sign. At first I was kind of confused on how the game worked, and the gameplay can be kind of confusing without context, but honestly I picked up on it quite fast. The main goal is to repair the bridge and bring bad guys to jail. You can repair the bridge by flying around and finding one of the bridge pieces scattered throughout the map. All you have to do is fly by it and Superman will automatically pick it up. To repair it, you have to place the pieces on the screen where the bridge was destroyed. You pretty much do the same thing with the bad guys, just grab them and bring them to jail. It's very simple, but the game can be very addicting. It's a high score based game. You get a better score based on how long it takes you to complete your task. Every time you reset the game, the pieces and robbers will be in completely different locations. It's just really fun trying to see how fast you can beat the game. Superman can be damaged by these kryptonite things floating around. If they touch him, he loses the ability to fly. To get it back, you have to find Lois and grab her. It shows that they understood that Lois Lane is just as important as Superman, and it's adorable that you have to reunite them to get his powers back. Superman lacks most of his iconic abilities, but he does have X-ray vision to view any of the 4 screens ahead of him. The map can be kinda confusing, especially because of the limited graphics on the Atari. It's easy to get lost, and a lot of the buildings look very similar, the only difference being the color of the backgrounds. There are lots of guides online that have the whole map laid out and how to traverse it efficiently. The game can be beaten in 3 minutes, and the ending is just Clark and Lois staring at each other. It's not an amazing ending, but I don't know what to say about it. The game isn't groundbreaking or anything, but it's cool to see that the developers understood Superman as a character, and they were able to convey that on the very limited hardware of the Atari 2600. The Atari was filled with so much garbage that I was actually surprised this game was good. Only 1 game in, and so far we're off to such a great start. The cleverly titled Superman the Game released in 1985 for the Commodore 64 in Europe. Interestingly enough, this is a 2-player game. One player takes control of Superman and the other Darkseid. The players are put against each other and have different objectives depending on what character they are. If you're Superman, your goal is to save the citizens, and if you're Darkseid, your goal is to lure and capture them. At least I think that's the goal of the game. I honestly can't tell. This isn't my first time using the Commodore 64 for a video, and I do appreciate the console. I don't know, the game and a lot of the stuff with the console make me not want to play it. I couldn't get this game to work for like 45 minutes. I would get past all the menus just fine, but when it got to the game, I couldn't control any of the characters. I was about to lose all hope, and that's not very Superman of me. I was just gonna record the game demo that plays when you don't move on the press start screen, and use that for footage. But after reading on some old forums, I figured out that to control the first player, I had to plug the controller into the second slot. And after spending so long just to get this game to run, is it even worth it? No. Man, I don't know what I'm doing 95% of the time. Things are just happening. Like I can bend these sticks to deflect my laser beams, but I can never get them to work properly. I don't know what it is, but Superman just won't use his heat vision. Meanwhile, Darkseid is having a blast, spamming his Omega beams everywhere. Oh, did I say Omega beams? It looks like he's fucking pissing everywhere. Darkseid is just so clingy. He will not get off my ass. I can't breathe for like 5 seconds. When I finally get a moment to myself, he comes running my way and starts rubbing up against me. And while all this is happening, I think I'm just gonna go deaf. Their heads at the bottom of the screen look so dumb, and I have no clue what any of the menus mean. Of course, I understand what people means, but what is the weird compass looking thing? While battling, there will be a chance to run off to the screen and into a combat zone. This can be different depending on who you're playing as, and Darkseid loved doing this. He always knew the exact moment of when to trigger it. There is no indication of when you can or can't, so how am I supposed to know? What if I wanted to see what Superman's combat zones looked like? What even is a combat zone, you may be asking? I don't fucking know. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on this game. It's not awful, it just lacks clarity. I don't know what's going on, I would say about 80% of the time. Maybe it's because I'm not playing this on an actual Commodore 64, or because I haven't read the manual. I think it's just a bad game. I think it's interesting that this is a two-player game where you're put against each other, but that's really the only thing this game has going for it. I can't say I really cared for it at all. And I hate that this is the first game to feature Darkseid. Now I'm going to remember him for this awful looking pixel art on the press start screen. Superman was developed in 1987 by Kemco and released for the Nintendo Entertainment System. I am very excited for this one because it's actually on a console that gives a damn. Wait, why is the Statue of Liberty chibi? I'm just gonna get this out of the way now. They don't play the iconic Superman theme from the 1978 Superman film. Normally I would not be mentioning this, but they do in the Japanese version. Instead, for some reason, the American version was replaced by music from another Kemco title. A game I'm not even going to try to pronounce. Anyways, this game makes a great first impression and brings big Superman vibes. Starting off as Clark Kent in the Daily Bugle, going into a telephone booth to change into Superman, chibi Statue of Liberty. This is an adventure game. You go around and talk to people to figure out what you should be doing. Like when you talk to Lois, she says the iconic Lois line, press select button for map. I actually kind of like this direction for a Superman game. Him taking the time to talk to every single citizen shows how kind and friendly he is. The game has a very simple but effective art style that fits the NES. Everything is clear, and the cute animations that play when Superman flies or takes the subway adds a lot of charm. I like the detailed backgrounds depicting the big cities and green parks. The enemies are bright and wear contrasting colors to Superman to help them stand out more. Although it's not clear on what collectibles are and aren't harmful. At least to me, since I did not read the manual before playing. I did go back to read it, and I think it's cool that they give an excuse on why Superman's X-ray powers are different. Stating, Superman is now unable to see inside buildings, as Lex has lined all the buildings in Metropolis with lead. Every chapter ends with a newspaper about how Superman saved the day, and it's just so Superman. I know the music wasn't made with this game in mind, but it fits pretty well and changes depending on what area you're in and whether you're Clark or Superman. The Metropolis as Clark theme goes so hard and is my favorite song in the game. It just sounds so magical for some reason. This game is honestly quite ambitious for an NES game. A huge city to explore, lots of different buildings to go inside of, tons of different abilities, hidden collectibles, and decently long chapters that have a great beginning, middle, and end. I will say it can get confusing at times on what exactly to do next, but if you just keep talking to citizens and traveling to different areas, you'll eventually figure it out. Or just look up a guide online. I like that this game really forces you to explore every inch of it, and also rewards you for doing so. If you go out of your way to go inside every building and every secret area, you'll find upgrades for your powers. The combat and controls feel fine. Superman's main attack is a pretty lackluster punch. You have to be really close to the enemy for it to hit, but it's not too bad. I've seen NES games that have it way worse. Overall, the difficulty is pretty fair, but when you're low on health and can't find health pickups, the game starts to get pretty intense. Once you lose a certain amount of health, Superman turns back into Clark, and loses all of his powers, has a weak punch, and can't jump high. He can only turn back into Superman if you get lucky enough for health pickups to drop, and are able to find a phone booth. Enemies can be a bit unfair because sometimes they'll be right at the start of the next screen, making them impossible to dodge. But I think the game is balanced, especially if you know what you're doing. Superman has a lot of different powers to use at a limited supply. X-ray vision makes invisible enemies visible. This is common in the latter half of the game. Super flight lets him fast travel to different areas. Super spin isn't an attack, but can be used to find secret underground areas. Heat vision is a strong but short laser attack. It runs out very quickly, so I only really used it on boss fights. Super Breath 1 freezes normal enemies, and Super Breath 2 freezes zombies. It's insanely impressive that they adapted all of Superman's abilities and made them purposeful. Like, some of the powers are essential for exploring the map to find secret areas, and others are helpful to take out enemies with ease. Being able to switch between them at any time is really cool, and gives you the freedom to solve things and play the game in your own way. The objectives in the game aren't overly complicated, but they kept me engaged. Like, the first objective in the game is to obtain a subway pass, because for some reason he just doesn't feel like flying today. But most of the time it has Superman going to specific areas and exploring different buildings to get hints on what to do next, and where the big bad might be hiding. You have to do these objectives in a certain order. You can't do them out of order, which kind of sucks. It really screwed me over when I died in chapter 4, because I thought I could do it in any order. Instead, I messed up the whole chapter and had to reset it because I just got super lost. It's not the worst thing in the world that the chapters aren't non-linear, and I think it may be expecting a bit too much from this game. But I thought it would be cool, and it makes sense with the game having a huge map to explore. Unfortunately for the game being so big, for some reason there isn't a save feature. If you die, you get sent back to the beginning of whatever chapter you were on, which isn't great because they can be very long. But honestly, it could be worse. It's easy to keep track of where you're going because of the overhead map. Superman can easily get around by flying if he has enough energy, or by using the subway system. There are tons of locations on the map to explore, and the map shows you how big this is. Wait, is that Lafayette?
Greater Lafayette.
As in
Take a step
Lafayette,
into the
Indiana?
past by exploring the farm.
No, wait, that's where I'm from. I can't believe I was so close to
downtown,
Superman this whole
which offers
time.
eclectic shopping and a farmer's
Guys,
market.
quickly,
Discover the
comment if
art
you're from
forms,
Indiana
explore
too.
galleries,
Maybe
and
we
the
can be
public
Superman's
art
neighbors.
galleries.
Maybe we are Superman. The game ends with a boss fight against General Zod. That's way too easy. And a final cutscene of Zod being sent to the Phantom Zone. And then we end things exactly where it starts, with Superman talking to the chibi Statue of Liberty, this time with the national anthem playing. It sure feels great to be an American sometimes. I can't take this fucking seriously, man. I mean, like, why is the national anthem playing? Everyone else you have to go up to talk to, but Superman just chooses to talk to the Statue of Liberty. I don't understand. What the fuck? Why the Statue of Liberty chibi? I was able to beat the game in a couple of hours on a weekend, and honestly, I really enjoyed my time with it. It's very impressive, and I love how much freedom it gives you. There's a decent narrative, tons of different abilities, multiple buildings to explore, people to talk to, and a huge map to explore, all in the NES game. I think it captures Superman well. With each chapter taking place as a new day, it brings focus on Superman's daily life and his never-ending battle for truth and justice. How he wakes up the next day and keeps going. no matter how hard that task is. There's a strong focus on Superman using his abilities to explore Metropolis and talking to all of the citizens. This is genuinely a great game, and a classic on the NES. It's so crazy seeing a licensed game from the 80s actually be good. If you're into retro games or just looking for a good Superman game to play, I would 100% recommend this one. Superman the arcade game, released in 1988, developed by Taito Arcade. Somehow this is the only Superman arcade game. DC in general doesn't really have a lot of arcade titles. Meanwhile, Marvel has quite a few that I remember playing a lot when I was a kid. I love the X-Men arcade games when I was younger. All DC has is Justice League Heroes United, which looks like an M. Dickey game. Anyways, how is the only Superman arcade game? It's not very good. The only good thing I could say about it is the visuals are great. Superman actually looks like Superman, and the details on his sprite just look gorgeous, but Superman himself is the only recognizable thing from the comics. The enemies and even the main villain are completely original to this game. They have ugly designs. It seems like they just dress them up in bright colors and call it a day. The main villain is just some generic alien. Like, they really put no thought on who these villains are. And that's indicative of the effort throughout the whole game. On a more positive note, I think it's cool that the second player has a red and yellow Superman suit. As for gameplay, it's just a generic beat 'em up. I'm surprised it took 3 games for them to turn Superman into this very common video game genre. I honestly think that this would be fine, but nothing about this game feels like it was made with Superman in mind. He has none of his iconic abilities. He can punch, fly, and shoot a beam from his hand. It's really odd. Why would you create a Superman game if you don't want to use any of his iconic abilities or rogues gallery? On flying sections, he will use his heat vision, but I feel like that's the bare minimum. If this was just a normal beat 'em up, he would just be in a jet, and the jet would shoot lasers. Like, there's just no thought put into this. The combat in this game feels so sluggish, and 80% of the time you're hit, it just feels like it's not your fault. I know it's an arcade game, so it's designed for you to keep losing, but the difficulty of this game is insanely unfair. It amazes me that they somehow made Superman feel so powerless. Enemies always land the first hit, and it can be impossible to fight back. Most of the time, Superman gets stuck being hit endlessly by them. My strategy to get through the game was to hit an enemy, then instantly just back away. But this is so lame. I'm playing as Superman. I should be able to plow through these guys. And when grabbing enemies get introduced, it's over. Genuinely, you're done. The game would be pretty much impossible if I did not have unlimited continues. Even the locations of the game have nothing to do with Superman. You're most of the time in a no-name city or spaceship. The levels all follow the same format, starting off with a beat-em-up side-scrolling parts, and then going to a vertically scrolling up flying parts, and then ending things off with a side-scrolling shooting part. At the end, there's normally a boss fight, but none of them stood out enough to warrant talking about. Just look at the gameplay for the final boss. It feels so unspecial. The iconic Superman theme doesn't even sound like it cares. In all honesty, these problems wouldn't even be relevant if they gave Superman the ability to use his heat vision and freeze breath. Well, they still would be relevant, but it would be a lot more forgiving. Like, I could forgive so many of the issues with this game's difficulty if it actually felt like a Superman game. What's the point of having access to adapt this character to a game if you don't want to take the time to actually adapt him well? At this point, he's just a generic beat-em-up protagonist. I completed the game in like 45 minutes and felt nothing. I don't have anything else to say about it. It's just really disappointing because it could have been something special. A DC superhero beat-em-up in the style of those X-Men beat-em-ups would have blown my mind away as a kid. But we are forever stuck with shitty DC arcade games, I guess. I mean, it's not like DC video games are any better now. It's not your screen. This game is just really dark for some reason. I don't know why. Superman, the Man of Steel, released in 1989 for the Amiga, or it actually released for a ton of other consoles. Do you want me to list them all? Things start off pretty promising, with these really cool comic book panel images to tell the story. I'm actually pretty excited. This game is abysmal. I don't even know where to start. The sound effects are dreadful to listen to. The game is just completely silent, but all I can hear is the ear-piercing screams and sound of ray gun shooting. It just makes me feel so depressed. The graphics are fine, but I'm kind of creeped out by the heat vision icon. Why is it just like an eyeball with like a laser pointing into it? I don't know, it makes me uncomfortable. The sensitivity for Superman is insane. If you just slightly touch the mouse, he goes soaring to the other part of the screen. The parademons are constantly shooting at you, so it's impossible to get close enough to hit them. If you stand still for even a second, your health instantly starts draining. They shoot out this weird white ring. I don't even know how to describe it, but if Superman only so much as brushes against it, then he's pretty much instantly dead. It's impossible to aim accurately in this game because of the bad sensitivity and the amount of obstacles you have to dodge. There is so much, but also so little going on. It's Superman fighting parademons in the sky. This is just a typical Wednesday for him, but I feel like I'm fighting for my life. Superman has 3 different attacks: a punch, heat vision, and super breath. I'm glad that they use most of his iconic abilities, but they're pretty much worthless. It's too hard to get close enough to an enemy to punch them, the sensitivity is too bad to aim the heat vision properly, and his super breath just pushes them back. But it doesn't help because they all quickly come back at the same time. It's so hard to defeat anything, and dying comes out of nowhere because you lose health so fast. When Superman is defeated, the game tells you Earth will rely on other heroes, which I think is so funny. He just flies away, and when you get a game over, he is seen moping about in the Fortress of Solitude. Even Superman knows this game is impossible. I could not get past this first level. I tried so damn hard for an hour just trying to beat it. I wasn't making any progress, so I decided to watch a guide online and see how people actually do this. And oh my god, you'll never guess how many enemies you have to defeat to progress to the next level. Not 20, or even 50, but 150. You heard that. 150 enemies. I think the most I ever defeated was 12. How is it even possible? The guy playing the game didn't even beat it legit. He has an invincible sheet on. Genuinely, tell me, what are you supposed to do? I don't understand how this is supposed to be possible. Why did they make the first level so hard? The rest of the game doesn't even look worth it. As of right now, this is probably the worst Superman game I've played so far. I can excuse the Taito arcade game because at least it has an excuse of being made for an arcade. But this game has no reason to be hard from the very start. I am not going to beat this game. At least I got top 10 current heroes according to the leaderboards. But if you could beat this game, please comment on the video and upload it to your channel. I will pin your comment, I promise. I just want to know if it's possible. But I don't even want to think about this game anymore. I'm moving on. 2 bad games equal a good one, right? Because I don't know if I can handle another bad one. Superman was released in 1992 for the Sega Genesis, and I'm excited for this one, I guess, because it's the first Superman game to be released on a 16-bit console. The last 2 games were awful, but hopefully this will be a good one. That's an attractive start screen. The level begins by showing you the front page of the Daily Planet, and then we see Clark Kent changing into Superman. First impressions of the actual gameplay are okay. It's another side-scrolling adventure game. No surprise with that, really. I like the art style a lot. Superman looks great, and I love when he jumps, he lifts one arm in the air, almost as if he's flying. The first level takes place on the rooftops, and you can see the Daily Planet in the back. I'm happy to see Superman stuff actually included in a Superman game. Superman still has none of his abilities. He can punch and jump, but that's all. It's honestly so lame. The NES implemented all of his abilities in fun and creative ways, but every game after just can't do that for some reason. There is a super punch ability that can be occasionally swapped out for a super spin, but they aren't great for attacks because it causes him to stand still when using them. They are designed to help him get around the levels. Sometimes you'll need to use a super punch to break down a wall, or use a super spin to go dig underground. The combat in this game is so basic. It doesn't feel that great. Most of the time, it's better to just run away from your enemies. You won't want to risk fighting them because you have very limited health in this game, and the health pickups are rare. They spam enemies in this game. There could be loads of them on screen at once, all with range attacks that are super hard to dodge, especially on the second level. Getting past these spiders was a nightmare. If you take your time and learn the levels, they're not that bad, and once you get the memorization down, it can be kind of fun, but I don't have time for that. If there were more combos or abilities for Superman, it would help make the game more memorable. Because to be honest, it just feels like a basic action game with Superman painted over it. Apart from the side-scrolling levels, you have on-rail shooting sections where Superman can fly around and shoot lasers with heat vision. These combat methods are alright, just not very original. I don't know why it's becoming a trend to make his heat vision exclusive to flying sections. On a more positive note, the setting variety is actually pretty great. The first level is in Metropolis. It's pretty easy. It gives you a good amount of time to get used to the controls. The second level starts off in a mansion until you find a secret underground base that eventually leads to an underground station. This level was a pain in the ass because the train cars are cramped and there are lots of hazards to dodge. It's not impossible, but health pickups are rare, and the spiders spit out little baby spiders that are impossible to dodge. There are 2 sections before this part, so it's likely you'll be low on health before you even get here. The third level starts with Superman flying over the ocean with a city in the background. It looks so beautiful. Eventually you'll make your way to the caves, which looks similar to the underground base from the last level, but whatever. This boss fight is seriously hard. You have to fight some dude on a jetpack. He is so fast, and you can't get too close without taking lots of damage. It took longer for me to defeat this boss than it did the final one. The entire 4th level takes place in space, and I enjoyed it. It was decently challenging, but started to overstay its welcome. The 5th and final level begins as soon as you take down the boss. Superman flies into the spaceship and we see Brainiac with a blonde goatee for some reason. Damn, was this level hard. There are tons of turrets waiting for you in every corner. Sometimes there would be turrets and enemies. It became a game of patience and learning the layout. It's not impossible, and I would say it's a pretty fair level of difficulty. Brainiac's ship is big and confusing, and I really like the look of it. Superman is flying the whole level, so your main attack is heat vision, which shakes things up a bit and gives you more room to plan attacks from a distance. I like that heat vision combat was used for a more traditional level that's not an auto-scrolling section. At some point in the level, you have to take down these 4 monsters. They're heavily guarded with lots of lasers and enemies. The monsters' attacks are unpredictable and completely different to the other enemies in the game. It made for a challenging but unique encounter. When you defeat one, Brainiac appears on a little screen and laughs at you. Honestly, it's kinda badass. Now on to the Brainiac boss fight. It starts off as a really challenging auto-scrolling section. Your main goal is to just survive, as you cannot damage the boss yet. I really like Brainiac's sprite. His cape and costume just looks so fucking menacing. I think this is a completely original design for him, and props to the creators for doing that. Like, it looks so cool. At the end, it's just Superman and Brainiac. He duplicates himself into 4, and they all spread out and spin in a fast circle. It's important to keep track of the real one, to dodge the attack that comes after the spin, and it gives you a brief opportunity to attack. In between spinning phases, there's an attack that looks really cool. After you hit him a few times, the boss fight is over, and damn, that was actually a pretty good boss fight. It's a spectacle to look at. Honestly, it brought this game from a 5 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10, which is pretty damn impressive. It's not too hard, but also not easy. It can get decently intense because the spinning becomes faster as the fight goes on. Once he is defeated, Superman flies out of his ship with Lois Lane and then passes the Earth, where we get this cute congratulations screen. The game took me about 4 hours to beat, and while I didn't really enjoy it that much in the first half, it kind of grew on me after the train stage. This game isn't amazing by any means, but it does a good job at being a very basic Superman game. Honestly, the presentation does most of the heavy lifting. The game had pretty solid music and the levels looked great. I don't know if you should go out of your way to play this game, but if you're a fan of Superman, then go for it. This is probably the 2nd or 3rd best game so far. The death and return of Superman is based on one of the most well-known comic stunts ever done. Directly adapting a comic book makes this game infinitely cooler than any of the other Superman games in this video. I'm very curious on how this game will hold up, because presentation-wise, it has me hooked. It's even developed by a pre-Diablo Blizzard, who would go on to make another DC game less than a year later, Justice League Task Force. What a sick press start screen! Seeing Doomsday break through the Superman emblem followed by moody music, you can tell this game was made in the 90s. Multiple images in this game are pixelated versions of comic panels. It's really cool and shows that the developers respected the source material. One problem. The game is kinda mediocre. It's another beat 'em up where you of course play as Superman, but this time there are 4 more playable characters. Throughout the levels, you'll also play as Superboy, Steel, Cyborg Superman, and the Eradicator. Although these are different characters, they all have the same basic abilities. A standard melee attack, a grabbing attack, a projectile, and an ultimate move that defeats all enemies on the screen. The combat is so simple. It sucks that pretty much every character is the same, apart from their animations. Being able to fly whenever you want can be kind of useful to avoid enemies' attacks, but it instantly becomes pointless when flying enemies are introduced. The art and graphics are what make these characters so special. They all look great, and their unique animations capture each character really well. The levels can be kinda basic look-wise, same with the enemy designs. I know they can't choose the location of the game because it's adapting a comic book, but at least make the locations stand out more from one another. In the first level, the enemies are normal people with dyed mohawks. Again, this game really is a relic of its time. Although I think fighting enemies in this game feels pretty unfair. Even just the standard enemies can be a pain in the ass to take down. They drain your health incredibly fast, and there are times where you can't get a chance to attack because you'll be stun locked. Near the end of the game, they spam enemies at you all at once, making it feel pretty much impossible to win. At least the game doesn't completely reset when you die, but the checkpoints still aren't that great. Enemies constantly have the advantage. There will always be a melee and ranged enemy on screen at the same time, so no matter what, you will always be hit. And oh my god, the bosses were beyond difficult. It doesn't matter what you do, the boss will always be able to hit you first. Defeating them feels completely down to chance. There's no real strategy on how to defeat certain enemies. It's determined almost by luck, which really dampened my experience with the game. The only reason I kept playing the game was to see the beautiful comic book panels and save states. It is definitely possible to beat the game without them, but I still have so many games to cover and it just helped me save time. This game isn't great, but it's not bad either. The presentation is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on why I like this game. The gameplay just isn't all that great. It's another beat 'em up and there's only so many times I can enjoy that. It feels like one of those games that would be on the background from a 2010s era YouTuber. Honestly, we'll probably never see a game like this again. With comic books just not being all that popular and would we want that anyways? I think DC's best-selling comic book this year so far was either Absolute Batman or... This game is truly a capsule of its time, with all the 90s edginess and being a beat 'em up, which was a very popular genre during that time. While I don't think this game is great, I had a smile the whole way through. If you're a fan of comic books or just cheesy beat 'em ups, I recommend you check it out. Superman, The New Adventures of Superman, or commonly referred to as Superman 64, is considered one of the worst video games of all time. This is nothing new. I actually played this one as a kid, and when I figured out it was some legendary game on YouTube, I felt so cool. I owned a collector's item. This collector's item being one of the worst games of all time, but it meant something to me. It was infamous for being spectacularly awful, but hear me out. I don't think Superman, The New Superman Adventures, is actually that bad. I don't think it's the worst Superman game. I don't think it's one of the worst games of all time, and I also don't even think it's the worst N64 game. Is Superman, The New Superman Adventures actually that bad? Maybe, but I don't know. I kind of have a soft spot for it. Everyone knows how bad it is, so my expectations start so low, and as soon as I'm playing the game, I'm trying to find positive things about it. The game throws you right in without telling you any of the controls, which sucks because the first stage requires precision and accuracy when flying through these hoops. As a kid, I could never get past this part, but in all honesty, it's not that hard. People make it out to be it's one of the worst things about this game. Not to sound like the biggest Superman 64 dick rider, but I don't think people have gotten past the first stage of this game. I don't think people have tried to. Sure, it's annoying in a weird way to start your Superman game, but it's not hard. The ring sections get hard near the end when they start moving around, but overall it's manageable. Although, after the first set of rings, the next stage is so nonsensical. I don't even know what you're supposed to be doing. Just watch for yourself and you tell me. Then right after that, it's more rings. This is the main gameplay loop for Superman 64. Every other level will be set in Lex Luthor's virtual version of Metropolis. In these levels, you alternate between flying ring sections and saving civilians. These are all under a strict time limit, which can be completely unfair at times. As you can see, the city is covered in fog. I think it's funny that the developers tried to give a reason for why this is, and you'll never notice unless you read the manual. It says it's kryptonite fog, and it weakens him. That's why he can be hurt by regular enemies. I don't know, Sure, I guess I believe it, but we all know the fog is there to make the game run better, and that can't even save it from running horrendously. The parts where you're saving civilians in a virtual city are super dull, and most of the time downright confusing. You'll be given a quick improv prompt and thrown out there with 10 seconds to do the task. They fail so easily, and most of the time, I don't know what I did for it to happen. If you failed these, you have to replay the previous ring stage. So it's not awful, but if it's a tough ring stage, then it really sucks. Now I think most people think Superman 64 only takes place in this virtual city. I mean, I don't blame you. I did too. For the longest time, I just thought the whole game took place in that city. But now that I've actually gotten to the second level, it's surprising to see it takes place inside of an entirely different location. After every outside level, the next level will always be indoors. These levels are pretty different, with the main focus being exploring, combat, and puzzle solving. And honestly, I think these levels are more broken than the outside sections. You're really just fighting with the awful controls. Now that you're in a cramped area, the camera doesn't know what to do with itself, and most of the time will just get stuck. The combat feels so bad, and the animations make Superman look anything but heroic. Like, just look at the boss fight. Superman feels so weak. If he takes any damage, he just falls to the ground and lays there. Whenever enemies appear, the best thing to do is to just run away. These indoor levels can be very, very long, and they feel like a maze because everything looks the same. I was stuck on the second level for about an hour. I would get to the point where you need to do something with these bombs, but I could not figure out what to do for the life of me. After trying lots of different things for hours, I watched a YouTube video, and it turns out you just have to freeze them. That's great, but I couldn't figure out how to actually use my freeze breath. After another hour of just mindlessly looking around, I happened to find a hidden freeze breath power-up, and somehow you're supposed to know to collect this before, so you can use your freeze breath. I wasted so much time on this, like it's actually embarrassing. I don't want to say how long I took on this level. Like, looking back now, it feels like the solution is so obvious. Especially before in one of the city sections, you have to blow out a tornado using the freeze breath, and you collect the freeze breath icon before that. I don't know, I'm tired. Nothing in this game wants to work right. There's always something in the way of you enjoying it. I was only on the second level and I felt like I was going crazy. This game doesn't feel real. It honestly feels like it was made as a joke. After the second level, you of course fly through more rings, and then are tasked with destroying robots and protecting a kid on a skateboard, who is for some reason heading towards a bunch of men with guns. I don't blame him, to be honest. LexCorp is the next indoor mission, and just look at how bad the fog is for this level. It had a decent puzzle that's actually pretty tricky, but it's the first time you get to use Superman's heat vision. Somehow I've gone this far without talking about any of Superman's abilities. He can fly, punch enemies, and lift things up using a super strength. He actually has most of his iconic abilities like heat vision, freeze breath, super speed, and the ability to reprogram enemies to fight for him. These are only accessible by collecting power-ups and have a limited reserve. They're not great in combat and are mostly used for certain tasks. I pretty much tried to avoid combat at all costs. Enemies can be very overpowered, especially the ones with rocket launchers. I guess kryptonite isn't his only weakness. You never get a chance to attack, and when 2 or more enemies appear on screen, the game starts to slow down. The slowdown happens so often I just got used to it. But looking back at the gameplay, oh my god, it looks so bad. While the outside levels are pretty forgettable, the indoor levels are what drove me crazy. 2 in particular stand out to me: Park Place and the Metro. Park Place takes place in a parking garage. This level is confusing with lots of different rooms to go through that all look the same. I'm not sure what the exact objective is, but eventually I find Jimmy Olsen, who tells me I need to find Luthor's car to shut down the robots. So I have to run around this confusing level to find Luthor's car and then somehow find Jimmy again. It's a lot harder than this looks. This level is a damn maze. But once I do, he tells me that I need to stop the bomb before it blows up, and walks away. Again, I leave and have to find a bomb in a limited amount of time. Once I do, I freeze it, and then Jimmy comes out of fucking nowhere and tells me Darkseid doesn't defeat easily, and he'll be back for revenge. How does he even know this? So I have to walk around the map until I end up bumping into him. It better be worth it because it took forever to find him. I'm sure this fight will be legendary. I mean, it's Superman versus Darkseid. Honestly, I can't wait to see how this goes. just carry him around. The next level is the Metro, which, as you can assume, takes place in an underground train station. It's so massive, pretty much just a straight line, but since it's just an underground train station, pretty much everything looks the same. It's so hard to know where to go and what to do. I still didn't even know what I did to beat the level. I just kept walking around and eventually I made progress. There are these enemies with rocket launchers everywhere that drain your health. At some point in the level, you will find a scientist and you have to slowly follow him around to protect him. This takes 15 minutes to complete and the mission fails so easily. This level is the definition of insanity. I don't know what to do or where I'm going half at a time, and I feel like I'm constantly making no progress, and as soon as I do, I die instantly. It took me 2 hours to beat this level, but eventually, I beat Superman 64. I think it's funny they made a mode to free roam in the city, because it's one of the most lifeless hub worlds I've ever seen. After many hours with this game, I can definitely say it's not the worst video game. It's not even the worst Superman game. This game feels like one of those it's so bad it's good movies. Nothing works, but it's kind of beautiful because of that. Video games are meant to entertain, and this game entertained me. Maybe not in the way it intended, but I enjoyed it. I always say I'd rather play a broken game than a lifeless one, and this game is anything but that. I can see this game being very fun while getting drunk with a bunch of friends. You know what, Superman 64? You're not so bad. I would say there are at least 2 Superman games that are worse than you. Superman Shadow of Apokolips was released in 2002 for the PlayStation 2 and GameCube. Like Superman 64, it was based on Superman the Animated Series.
X-ray vision. One of many superpowers you have in the game. Not in real life. Superman, Shadow of Apokolips, rated everyone.
It's the second 3D Superman game on the list, and I have zero clue what this game is like. Today, I'm going to be checking out the PlayStation 2 version, which was a huge mistake, but I'll get onto that later. So first impressions. The game looks okay. The cutscenes aren't that bad. It's kind of cool that the cast from the show reprised their roles in this game. I think it's heartwarming that the tutorial and first level are all about Superman saving people. I'll just get it out of the way now. But this game is so lifeless, and I had a hard time finding things to say about it. The levels in this game are very forgettable. Nothing stood out to me when writing notes, and now while I sit here and write this script, I just feel nothing. I felt like I was on autopilot while playing. Most of the game is fight enemies and save civilians. Some things that stood out was this part on the 3rd level where you have to button mash to stop a flood, and it's stupidly hard. So hard I had to set up a macro to button mash for me because I could just not beat it. It's not made clear, but the level is also on a timer, so it would randomly end and you're forced to watch the city flood. It's kind of morbid. In the 4th level, you go undercover as Clark Kent. It's a stealth level that sucks because of the controls. It's hard to tell where a guard is because you can't move your camera. And for some reason, I sucked at getting past these laser doors. The game in general felt unfair. So many random things cause you to fail without any warning. The building could randomly self-destruct, or a civilian could be captured. You have no way to defend yourself when in combat, but at least you regenerate health over time. The worst part of the game was when I had to grab these coolants in a small amount of time. To get to them, you have to go through these narrow passages filled with enemies and traps. Once you have the coolant, you have to make your way back quickly and be careful not to touch any of the fire so the coolant doesn't melt. It was an awful experience. These things would melt so fast. It's hard to be fast when I have to carefully dodge bursts of lava. And not to mention, I'm being timed. I don't understand how they expect a child to beat this. You have to do this 4 times in just 3 minutes, and each coolant gets harder to access as you progress. It's like this game is actively working against you. Combat is just straight up not fun in this game. Melee is very basic. You can grab pipes off the wall and use them as an attack, but all melee encounters were made pointless when I found out about the heat blast attack. It makes it where you can avoid being hurt by enemies, and does a lot of damage. But all combat encounters were forgettable. Even the boss fights sucked. The game controls okay overall. It's weird not being able to control the camera at all. Instead, the right stick controls Superman's flight. They're not the worst controls, but it's an interesting choice. The last boss fight was easy, and the final cutscene hints at a possible sequel with Darkseid being involved. That never happened. Everything in this game is so average. The levels are boring and nothing about them stands out. All of the locations suck. Sure, they look like they're from the show, but most of the levels take place in a factory, facility, or underground base. Nothing about these locations felt unique to a Superman game, and made the game feel more tiring than it had to be. There's nothing to go out and explore. The levels are so linear that it instantly kills any room for collectibles. Linear games aren't bad, but how the game does them just makes you want to fall asleep. Nothing ever changes. You're doing the same things over and over again. It's a shame that this game is so lifeless. But at least there's fun cheats to mess around with. I tried to enter them in, but they would not work. And that's when I figured out that the majority of cheats are exclusive to the GameCube version. I instantly regretted not playing that version. Just look at how much better it looks. There's a code that unlocks a free roam mode, and I will admit, this is pretty cool. There's nothing to do in the city apart from 2 mini games, but I would have loved this as a kid. There's also this question mark option on the extras menu. Let's see what it is. I take it back, this game is a masterpiece. I mean, look at how happy the developers looked while making this game. There's also a cheat that lets you play as Clark Kent, Parasite, or turns the city into this red monstrosity. Overall, Superman Shadow of Apokolips is just alright. It does exactly what it needs to do, but in the most uninspired way possible. And while I hate it as a 22-year-old, maybe I would have loved it as a kid, I'll never know. But it looks like the developers had a good time making the game, and that makes me happy. Shadow of Apokolips wasn't the only Superman game to release in 2002. Superman the Man of Steel released exclusively for the Xbox, and it's,
When Brainiac upgraded Metropolis and nearly...
I remember, Jim. I also remember that I was barely able to beat Brainiac 13 before.
Okay, for some reason this game runs so poorly on the emulator I'm playing on. It's not unplayable, but it's just so much uglier to look at. This first stage instantly throws you into this futuristic version of Metropolis. There's flying cars, empty streets, and everything is gritty and industrial. Superman is pretty much flying through the whole game, and I think that's because they're trying to hide how ugly his walking animations look, and how empty the city is. In each level, you have to complete different objectives, while traveling large distances of whatever area you're in. Most of the time, it's to defeat enemies, but sometimes it's to put out a series of fires using his freeze breath, or rescuing citizens. There's not a lot to do despite these levels being so big. It feels like it's trying to trick you into thinking that there's a lot to do because you have so much space to roam around. But instead it makes playing these levels annoying because you're constantly having to travel around. None of these objectives are fun enough, and the game made me want to fall asleep. The enemies in this game are color-coded according to their weakness. Yellow means they're vulnerable to melee attacks, green is freeze breath, and purple is heat vision. It makes combat extremely simple, like a children's game. All you're doing is matching colors. There's this part on the second level that is pretty much impossible because how fast the building gets destroyed. Bizarro is the first boss in the game, and you're chasing him around and putting out any fires he starts. I think it's cool that Bizarro is in a Superman game, but why did it have to be this one? Just look at how ugly he is. From that point on, a lot of the levels take place outside of Metropolis. Although the objectives are still the same, these areas are gorgeous. Downtown at night made all the lights and billboards stand out so beautifully. And oh my god, the level on Earth's orbit may just be one of the prettiest levels ever put in a Superman game. While I still think the game is bad, the levels and atmosphere on some of these levels do a really solid job. I don't understand why the first 2 levels look as ugly as they do. These settings look gorgeous for an Xbox game, and I love just standing around and taking it all in. Even the enemies have some cool designs. It really looks like the concept artist had a unique vision, and I really respect that. Like their unique interpretation for the Phantom Zone is really cool and trippy, with some cloudiness making it all disorientating as you fly under bright blue globs of land. The music also does a good job at creating a spectral and unearthly atmosphere. The game started out so poorly for me because of the bad gameplay and how ugly the first 2 stages looked, but slightly went up as I moved on. There are also tons of bonus modes, like a free roam mode that lets you explore one of the multiple hub worlds, and you can unlock different costumes based on the comics. Overall, I think the game is still pretty bad. I'm just so disappointed with the game because it has such a strong art direction, but the gameplay and hell, even the characters all just look and feel so bad. The cutscenes in this game are awful, and same for the character models for most of the characters. Like, Superman looks 10 times more detailed than any of the civilians. I don't know if I would recommend this game. Maybe if you use cheats to explore the levels and play whatever level you want, but I would not recommend touching the basic story mode. Superman Returns is based on the 2006 movie of the same name. It's also the last Superman video game to ever be released. Sure, we've gotten Superman video games where he's been one of the main characters, but it's been 19 years since we've gotten a solo Superman adventure. I could not get the Xbox 360 version to work at all, so I'll be playing the PlayStation 2 one. From my understanding, they're pretty much the same game. The Xbox 360 version just looks significantly better. Will the last Superman game go out in glory? Will it prove that a Superman video game could work? Let's just find out. Pretty cool press start screen, I guess. Would have looked cooler on the Xbox 360 though. While this game is based off the Superman Returns film, the plot is completely different, most notably of how many villains that only appear in this game. Bizarro, Metallo, Mogul, and Riot. They somehow got Brandon Routh, Kevin Spacey, and Kate Bosworth to reprise their roles. Like, how do they even do that? What was this game's budget? So far, it's giving me weird vibes. Things start off in the city of Metropolis where Superman's dad teaches you the controls of the game. This is probably the best controlling Superman game. Flying feels great and you can reach insane speeds. I love the effects and the sound design it has when you're moving so fast. I like how easy it is to switch between your main abilities, and you got pretty much all of them. Heat Vision, Super Breath, and Freeze Breath. These abilities are used to destroy meteors before they reach Metropolis, and to put out fires. It's a great and exciting introduction to the game. It helps you get used to all of Superman's abilities, but in style. After that, Superman is sent to War World for a tutorial on combat. While I won't get too deep into it now, the combat in this game is a mixed bag. I had fun with it during this mission and a couple of other times, but for the most part, it wasn't great. In War World, Superman has to defeat 3 gladiators. They're pretty easy. The second one was the worst in my opinion because he would grow really big, and the only way you can take him out is by throwing things at him. But he would do this move that would just knock me over, making you drop whatever you were holding. Oh, this is where I also figured out you can grab things from the environment. After that, you're free to explore and do whatever you want in Metropolis. You better like this hub world, because this is where the rest of the game takes place. Random events will happen throughout the city. These can be many different things, and change depending on what chapter you are on. But most of the time, it's either a burning building, enemies need to be taken out, or a boss fight. For the first time in a Superman game, Superman doesn't take any damage. Instead, the city has a health bar that you need to protect. This is so fucking cool, man. The damage system is a perfect blueprint on how future Superman games should work. It forces you to be careful with all your abilities so you don't hurt civilians or damage the city. While fighting enemies, civilians will get hurt, and you have to bring them to safety. It's a perfect balance. Superman may be invincible, but Metropolis is not. This truly embodies Superman. I got so tired of every Superman game being so unoriginal. Most of the games before it were just generic beat-em-ups or action games. There was no thought behind it. They would just put Superman over whatever generic action game they could think of. But the developers of Superman Returns really tried to think about what makes Superman unique and how they could turn that into a video game. The game gives you all of these overpowered abilities and forces you to restrict your use of them and focus on what Superman is all about. And there's something really special about that. I love how the health system works in this game. It's a really creative idea. It just sucks that the game kind of blew it. I know I was praising this system, but the execution is kind of poor. It's fun for the first hour or two because the game is fresh. But after you get to like chapter 5, you start to notice a pattern. There are really only like 3 to 4 different objectives. Burning buildings, enemies on the ground, flying enemies, and boss fights. After each objective, Superman will gain a small amount of XP. Once he reaches a new XP goal, you'll move on to the next chapter. Every chapter will have 1 boss fight encounter, so most of the game is the same 3 objectives over and over again until you level up. This gets dull fast, and sometimes the wait between objectives can be a bit, so you'll just be stuck there doing nothing. The objectives are short and can be beat within 2 to 3 minutes. After fighting the boss 3 times, the next chapter will be the final encounter with him. And after the final encounter, all the enemies and objectives will be a bit different. Like in the first few chapters you're fighting robots, then in the next one you're fighting dragons and weird creatures. It does shake things up a little bit, but not by much. And these enemies are harder to defeat, making you waste more time. The combat really isn't fun at all. Most of the time the enemies block everything and you have to wait for them to attack first. Or sometimes they'll just go off and do something else. It's so slow and I felt like I wasted so much time just sitting there. Near the end, I got to the point where I would just grab pretty much anything I could see and throw it at the enemies because it did more damage than any attack. And they also could not block it. Sure, it would damage the city, but it really didn't matter because I had so much city health at that point. The boss fights were okay. The main standout was Metallo. He grows really big and starts to destroy buildings around him. It's an easy boss fight. You pretty much just throw things at him until he is defeated. But I would be lying if I said it wasn't a cool experience. The rest of the boss fights were pretty forgettable. Bizarro sucked because he just moved way too fast and I felt like it went on for so long. Although the last boss fight was amazing. I saw that some critics were mad about the final boss fight, but oh my god, you'll never guess who the final boss is. Most people would assume Lex Luthor or General Zod, but no, it's against a giant tornado. Not only does this look super cool, but I love this. It's very simple, but fits so well with everything else you've done in the game. I would have been so annoyed if the final level was just another mindless fight. Superman must use his super breath to blow the tornado away from the city, and then switch between freeze breath and heat vision to stop the tornado. These directions are given to you by Superman's father, and it's the exact same narration from the tutorial levels. It's so cool, it honestly made this feel so fucking epic. And the tornado, like, looks so big and impressive, especially for a PS2 game, watching it fling things around. I don't care if it's not General Zod or Lex Luthor, this is fucking awesome. After that, the game comes to an end. You can still earn XP in the city and unlock a Bizarro mode, where you play as Bizarro and you can use your powers to destroy the city. I think it should be mandatory that every Superman game from now on has a Bizarro mode, because that's fucking awesome. You unlock a Golden Age suit for completing the main story, which I don't know why he looks so ugly, and there are 100 hidden cats to find throughout the city that unlock concept art. The concept art section is filled to the brim with cool stuff to look at. Tons of promotional posters, early designs for characters, comic book panels, and even storyboards from the film. There are hundreds of stuff to look at, all with detailed descriptions of what they are. It really shows the developers really cared for the game. It's unfortunate that most of Superman Returns is pretty mediocre, but the foundations of a great Superman game are there. I never even would have thought of the idea to use the city as Superman's health bar. It's honestly such a cool concept, and I could see it working so well in a better Superman game. I do recommend you check this out. There is a lot of care put into it, but don't feel bad if you can't get yourself to play it all the way through. Now it's time to rank every single Superman game from worst to best. I've thought long and hard about this, but I think the worst Superman video game is Superman for the Amiga. I could barely get through it, man. If I can't beat the first level of a game, I'm sorry, it's unplayable in my book. And while Superman 64 is a glitchy mess, this game's existence is just a mess. The number 10 spot goes to Superman the Game for Commodore 64. What more can I say? I could barely get the game to work, and even when I did, it was lame. And 9th is Superman, the New Superman Adventures. Honestly, the worst thing about this game could be the title. Now, I wouldn't say this game is overhated, but I do think its reputation is a bit overblown. Yes, the game is bad and glitchy, but it's far from the worst game of all time. Hell, far from one of the worst games on the Nintendo 64. It brought me way more entertainment than those first few games ever did. We're not in the good games yet because in 8th place is Superman Arcade. At the point of writing the script, I can hardly remember anything about the game, apart from one of the Supermen are red. In 7th place is Superman the Man of Steel for Xbox. Is it a good game? No, but it had unique and strong art direction, which is confusing because it's also so ugly. Honestly, looking back, Superman Shadow of Apokolips being in 6th place is pretty lame. I can't remember a damn thing about this game. It's so generic, and you could replace Superman with a generic superhero and the game would be exactly the same. In 5th place is The Death and Return of Superman. It's only so high in the ranks because it's adapting a comic book and just looks so damn cool. In 4th is Superman for Sega Genesis. It's pretty well made. It's not the best game ever, but it does a good job at being entertaining. Yes, I'm also surprised that Superman for the Atari is ranked 3rd. They really nailed it on the first try though. It's a fun and addictive high score game, and it truly embodies Superman. Like, I don't know what else to say. In 2nd place is Superman for the NES. I really enjoyed this game. For the longest time, I was thinking it was going to be the best Superman game. It just does everything so well and contains a decent amount of depth for an NES game. We all saw this coming, but in 1st place is Superman Returns. It is by far the best Superman game. Sure, it may grow stale after 2 hours, but it built a good template and is a strong example of what a Superman game should be. So strong it was the last Superman game to ever release. It's bizarre that we have not gotten a new Superman game in almost 20 years. He's the very first superhero ever made, and one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. People may think what he does is old-fashioned, but there is always a time and a place for Superman and what he stands for. Now more than ever, we all need Superman. And with this new movie releasing, it's reminding everybody how important hope is, and a Superman video game could easily do the same. What do you guys think is the best direction for a Superman video game? Let me know. Also, let me know if you're going to watch Superman. I've been waiting years for this, and I cannot wait. Sorry it's been so long without content. I've been trying to get better. I have a big video planned for September. I mean, it's pretty obvious, it's LEGO Dimensions. But I'm going through a really big move, and there's been a lot of difficult things going on in my life right now. But thank you so much for all the support and comments that everyone still leaves. I am so grateful. And I wanted to end things off from a message from one of my favorite YouTubers, Steve Shives.
Superman's response is to take off and get back to work. He won't be able to fix everything. He won't be able to help everybody. He might not even be able to prevent the worst from happening. But he will do what he can. It's not just the Man of Steel who's fighting a never-ending battle. It's all of us. As we fight that battle over the next 4 years and far beyond, I can't think of a more devastatingly accurate portrait of our current circumstances than this one. And I can't think of a better image to inspire us to keep pushing ahead than this one. Back to work. You heard the man.